All right. Again, thanks everyone for joining our AnVIL demos today. Today, I'm going to be sharing about how to run Galaxy in AnVIL. These slides are open source in case you'd like to use them for any of your training beyond this. So the objectives for today's session is going to be learning how to launch Galaxy in AnVIL, how to bring data from your workspace into the Galaxy environment, understand how to find and import as well as run workflows on that data. The analysis that we're going to be doing will lead into visualizing a sample variant using JBrowse. So we could jump into that if there's time. Learning how to save our history back to AnVIL. So once we finish the analysis, we want to save our work and be able to free the resources that we use so we don't have to incur the continuing costs of the environment, and then learn how to shut down that interactive environment of Galaxy and AnVIL. So a quick overview. If you're not familiar with Galaxy, it's a web-based platform that you can use to do data science. It has a graphical user interface, so you don't need to be a programmer. You don't need to be an expert in all the various languages that are needed to run a lot of these popular tools. You can quickly get in and find the tools that you need and interact with that all in this workspace, in the same workspace. So you can use Galaxy to run tools, to analyze your data, various data types. You can also interact with your data, visualizing it right here in the center panel, getting to explore what's there, and also act as that confirmation for the analysis that you're doing, that you're really getting the result that you want. You can also scale your analysis. So that's going to be really helpful once you've done your initial work to be able to apply that over many, many samples or share the workflow that you might have developed with your collaborators so they can quickly reproduce the result that you had or apply your workflow to their data. And then you can also share either your individual analysis that you've done or share workflows for the broader community to use. And then you could also share your history or workflows in a publication. So a real life example of a group that's using Galaxy, there are a lot, but just to highlight one particularly that's using Galaxy workflows is the Vertebrate Genomes Project. This is an effort that is working to create assemblies of genomes for the roughly 70,000 vertebrate species on Earth. Currently, the consortium is using Galaxy to run some of these production scale workflows that they've developed that integrate a couple of different data types to assemble about 3 genomes per week. And they aim to scale up to assembling about 125 a week as the workflows get hardened and as kind of the unique needs based on different genomes from various species get kind of sorted out. So this is really exciting to see this group leveraging Galaxy, where Galaxy manages a lot of the dependencies, and you can quickly and easily get access to these workflows in order to run the analysis, run the assembly on your own data. As they've been developing these workflows, they've all been published to DocStore. They're all open source and public and free to use. So I'd encourage you to look into that if that's of interest to your research. So the activity that I'm going to be highlighting today is going to feature a little bit of science, but mainly as a way to teach how you can use Galaxy in AnVIL. So a little bit of background on that. As we're all familiar with the COVID pandemic, there were a number of variants that kind of cycled through, and Galaxy was part of the effort to analyze these variants and help to do some of that surveillance. So there was many viral samples that were collected and that are publicly available. And as we might remember, in November, there was the rise of the Delta variant. So what we're going to do today is to bring in some raw data that was collected by the Virginia Commonwealth University, that's ready to go in our workspace. We're going to bring that into Galaxy. We're going to do a quality check to see if we're going to be able to analyze that data set, quickly align it to a SARS-CoV-2 reference using BWMM, and visualize a variant to understand whether our viral sample had the Delta variant or not. So the steps that are going to be part of that are in AnVIL, we'll find the workspace that has this data and has some of this background information that I've shared. From there, I'm going to launch Galaxy and bring data into that environment. We're going to explore workflows a little bit and run the workflow that's been prepared for this analysis to be able to explore the results, export our history back into the workspace, and shut that down to prevent incurring any additional costs. So at this point, I'm going to flip over to the live demo portion. I'll be kind of doing a little bit of description of what we're doing in AnVIL. This might be the first time that you've seen the platform. We have some a nice demo that was given earlier this year about an intro to AnVIL. If you're interested to see that, that'll share a little bit more detail specifically about AnVIL. So first, when we go to AnVIL, I'll go to anvil.terra.bio. I am currently logged in, so you'll have to create an account if this is your first time coming to AnVIL. And I already know that I want to look at a specific workspace that has the data that I want to work with in it. So I'm going to click on View Workspaces. So this will populate a list. Currently, I'm looking at all of my workspaces. The workspace that we're working with today is a public workspace, so that's been published. And to find that, I'm going to type in SARS, and that will get me to the workspace that I want to look at. So I want to look at this SARS-CoV-2 variant detection workspace. So here, initially, we're seeing the dashboard. This is a place where, as a researcher, if you're running analysis in AnVIL, and you want to share with your collaborators or even publish it and share it with the world, this is where you would describe maybe the data that you have, any workflows that you've done, the source of the data, any licenses and contributions as necessary. So this is a really nice place, even as you're exploring other workspaces, to learn more about what's inside. Next, I'll flip over to this data tab. And this is where we'll be able to see our data that are within this workspace and ready to analyze. So on the left-hand side, I see I have three kind of main buckets. I have tables, reference data, and other data. First, I'll look at the tables. I'll click on the reference first. So in this reference table, it looks a bit like an Excel table. And here what we have is the reference genome. So this is the name of this reference. And then I have a link to the FASTA file. So you might notice it might be a little bit small, but in the bottom left, you'll see this is a GS link. So this is a link to the URL in the Google bucket where this file is stored. Which is really handy because I am going to make a copy of this workspace and I don't have to copy over the data to my workspace. I can access this data set that's in this original workspace, which is really handy. And then next, I'll take a look at this sample table. So I can expand this column here and see that I have two sample files. I have the forward reads and the reverse reads. I have a column here that's denoting that as well. And then again, I have these FASTQ files that you'll see are within this Google bucket that I'll be able to access. You could also explore how to add in other reference data here that might be already preloaded into AnVIL. And then you'll also be able to upload other data files in this files folder if that's necessary for you. So today we're just going to be using this data that's already part of the workspace. So next I'm going to jump into the analysis. Before I do that though, the first step is I'm going to make a copy of this workspace. So because this was the kind of official published workspace, I'm going to make a copy of it so that whatever I do, that's linked to me, and that's not going to make any changes in this published workspace. So to do that, I'm going to click on this three-dot menu right here, and I'm going to click on Clone. And this brings up a menu here where I can add in a bit of details for my copied version of the workspace. So it automatically adds a copy to the end of the name. So I can find it later. I'm going to add my initials and add the date and AnVIL demos. That's going to help me remember specifically what I was using this workspace for. And then I'm going to select my billing project. So the billing project is the way that within Terra we can specify which accounts need to get billed for the compute that I'm going to do. So I'm a part of AnVIL Outreach. I'm going to select that as my billing project. And I'm just going to keep this bucket location the same. It notes that Google might be charging some extra egress fees. The data that we have are very small, so I'm not too concerned about that. This description here is copying over the information that's part of the workspace dashboard, so I don't want to make any changes to that. I'm not working with any protected data, and it won't require an authorization domain to manage access to that protected data, so I'm just going to leave that as is and clone the workspace. So again, cloning the workspace is going to allow me to create my own copy of this workspace where I could kind of run free and do any analysis that I want without affecting the initial work that's been done. And then any analysis that I do is not going to be charged to the initial creator of this workspace. And the key thing as well that's nice is that the data is linked to that initial workspace that I was looking at. And so now that's denoted by this I here that the files that I'm linking to here actually live in a different workspace. So they are in a different Google bucket than this workspace. So finally, getting to the analysis, now that we are all set up in AnVIL, next I'm going to click to the Analyses tab. And this is going to be the place where I can launch my interactive environment from where I'm going to be running Galaxy. So I'm going to click Start here. And I have a couple different options. You could run Jupyter, you can run RStudio and Bioconductor. Today we're going to run Galaxy, so I'm going to click on Galaxy. And I see a few details about the costs for the resource configurations that are part of the default. If I needed more resources, I could easily scale this up to, 8 nodes. If I needed 32 CPUs with 120 gigs of memory, it'd incur a bit more cost than the standard configuration, but I'd be able to scale that to whatever size that I need, which is really handy if you're trying to scale your analysis. So I'll just reset that to the defaults and click Next. And finally, I'm ready to launch my cloud environment, confirming that it'll take a little bit of time for the environment to get set up. If I don't delete the environment, then costs will continue to incur. So we're going to be sure to show you how to stop that when you're done with the analysis. And at any point, if there are updates that you need to make, then you'd have to close the environment and restart it. So I'm ready to launch my environment. I'm going to click Create. And at this point, that will be provisioning. And since that takes a little bit of time, I've already gone in a different copy of this workspace and created a Galaxy environment. I can see here on the right that my environment is running. So I'm going to click on that and I could click open to launch the environment. I've got that ready to go in this tab here. So once the environment is ready, we're able to see the Galaxy platform that we know and love. If you haven't seen Galaxy before, on the left-hand side, we have the tool panel. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit. We have the tool panel where you can search for tools or explore tools based on the data type that you might be working with. On the center panel is where we'll be able to configure any parameters for the tools that we run. And on this right-hand panel is the history, which is going to track each of the steps that we run, each of the tools that we run, the outputs, any data that we upload. So this is going to be nice for us to track the progress as we work through our analysis. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is bring in data from my workspace to the Galaxy environment. So similar how you would in Galaxy, the public Galaxy instance, in AnVIL, we'll click on this upload data button. I could choose to upload data from my computer. I want to upload that data that's already in my workspace, so I'll click on choose remote files. And this top option here that I have is to go into the folder that is my workspace. So I'll click on that. And here we see those three same bins that we saw under the data tab. My data was organized in the tables, so I'll click on tables. I have those two tables. I want to bring in the reference. And I also wanted to bring in the samples, so I'm going to click back and select the forward and the reverse samples that I had. I'll click OK. Start the upload. Those look like they're ready to load, so I'll click close here. And now we see the data being imported from our workspace into the history. In Galaxy, each of these items in the history, as they're running, will be that kind of orange yellow color. If the job was completed successfully, which this job was of uploading the data, that box will turn green. If not, it would be red, and you need to try it again or kind of reconsider the tool that you might be running with the data that you're working with. All right, so now that our data is loaded, I'm going to quickly take a peek. So I'm going to poke it in the eyeball here with this eye icon. And we'll get to see the contents of our FASTQ file, which is as expected. I'm noticing kind of this tag description, each of the bases, the space line, and the representation of the quality score of the data, as I would expect in a FASTQ file. So we've got set up for the analysis. For this analysis that we've done, we've already created a workflow that will run through each of these steps. And that's actually linked in the original workspace. So I could upload that workflow and run that without necessarily having to go through all of the steps. So I'm going to flip back to my workspace to be able to grab that link and copy it. So I'll scroll down. Here is the description of the workflow and a link to the workflow. So I'm just going to copy that link and put back into Galaxy. So to import that workflow, I'll click on this workflow button here. This one's I've already imported it as I was practicing earlier. So that's ready to go. I'll show you how you can import again. So clicking on that import button, I'll copy and paste in my URL, and I will click to import the workflow. So that was pretty speedy. It took less than a minute since I have a relatively simple workflow. You could also import other workflows that are available through DocStore or the GA4GH tool registry service. So you could search for VGP workflows or other workflows here as well, and import those directly in Galaxy. But since we've got the workflow that we need for this analysis, I'm going to switch over again to the workflow. And let's quickly take a look at what those steps are going to be. So here, I'll click on the workflow name, and I'll click on Edit, which will take me into the workflow editor. I really like this auto layout option because it'll make my visualization a little bit more pretty. So here I'll see that I have these input data sets. This forward reads data set will go into the FastQC tool that's going to do a quick quality check of our data. And then these three data sets that we brought in, the forward reads, reverse reads, and the reference, will all get put into BWA mem to align to that reference. And finally, the output of BWA mem, as well as the reference for that track, to compare the visualizations of the mapped reads and the reference will be put into JBrowse, and we can use that tool to visualize the data. So briefly, that was kind of our workflow that we've imported. Next, I'll run the workflow with that run button on the top right. I'll select the forward reads. The reverse reads have been selected here, and the reference is already ready to go there. So I'll click Run Workflow. I could have edited some of the parameters through that form there, so that's something that you could fiddle with if you're interested, if you're trying a workflow for the first time. So each of my jobs have been scheduled, and we can see that some of them are already running in the history here on the right. So we have FastQC that's going to analyze that forward reads and let us see the quality of that data set. And there will also be the alignment that's going on right now that's mapping these forward and reverse reads and aligning them to the reference genome. So we'll give that a moment to run. We've got the results of the FastQC. I can quickly peek in there and zoom out a little bit so we can see the full graph, but we see the quality scores are quite high with the sample, so that's a pretty good thing. There's a bit more that we could explore there as well. And finally, I can click on this JBrowse output that would help me to visualize the data sets. So currently, the track that's selected is the reference, and then I'll also select the output of the aligned data, as well as the coverage of the SNPs. So we can see here at this location, there was a variant. There's a lot more that we can explore here and visualize, but this is a nice activity I think that we can showcase, where in Galaxy you can analyze your data and visualize it all in the same place. So now that we've completed our analysis, I am incurring, as we saw, about 56 cents an hour to run this environment. I've done the analysis. I found this variant that I wanted to find. I do want to save this history so that I could come back to it. So the way that I'll do that is up here, I'll click on History Options, and I'll export our history to a file, and I'll be able to send this history back to the workspace. I can zoom in a bit again. So I'll export that to a remote file. I'll select the directory. So I'll select my workspace directory, and I'll actually throw that in that files folder under the other data within the workspace. So I've selected that folder, and I'll name this analysis SARS-CoV-2 alignment, and visualization. And that will export my history back to my workspace so that now that I've completed my analysis, I would be able to shut down this interactive environment and restart it and bring in this history if I wanted to take a look at this analysis again. So this will take just a moment. We got a message that the history was successfully exported. So I'm going to flip back over into my workspace in AnVIL. I'm going to go into the Data tab, click on Files within that other data bucket that we had, and here I see my Galaxy history file. So at this point, I know that shuttling back of the history into the workspace worked. So to shut down Galaxy, I can simply close that tab. And in my analysis bar here, I can click on the Galaxy environment. In the settings, I can select to delete that environment. And because I brought back in my history and the data that I was working with was already in my workspace, there weren't necessarily any intermediate files that I wanted to save. I'll delete the persistent disk as well. And click delete. So we notice here that the rate has already decreased significantly. So those resources that were used for the Galaxy interactive environment were released. And now there are just a couple of cents as the persistent disk is getting deleted. So then you could come back and check to make sure that that rate is at 0 since we've completely shut down the environment. So to recap what we've done, we went through a couple of steps where we were able to clone a workspace in AnVIL. So we were interested in run data. We were interested to look at, launched Galaxy in AnVIL, imported a workflow and ran it. We're able to visualize our results and send the output back to our workspace and delete Galaxy, the environment and resources that we're using. So of course, this is a pretty simple example, pretty fun. This is hopefully showcasing how you can scale the resources that you need. You can also run Galaxy exactly as you might with a few new interesting ways that you can interact with it in terms of being an administrator of your instance where you can install your own tools. There are some kind of unique ways that you can use Galaxy and AnVIL as well. And then use that in the AnVIL protected environment that's suitable for using human genomics data. So with that, I'd like to thank those on our outreach team who have contributed to developing this exercise. At this point, we've gotten to the close of the demo. So I'll stop the recording and we can go into the Q&A.